How's it going, everyone? This is Dom. I am the founder of Mantra, and we are a sustainable apparel brand that builds gear inspired by nature and built to protect it. And today, we are having a podcast series with Ryan Borne, who is one of our collaborators and an awesome storyteller, photographer around the ocean and around conservation. So Ryan, stoked to talk with you today.
Thank you very much for having me, and yeah, it's a pleasure. Can't wait to start the conversation.
How's everything going in the middle of Pacific right now?
It's all right. Like it's cool. It's cool. We're like still a bit preserved, like from the whole like situation.
Yep.
Even though we might be one of the strictest country on like restriction, which is like the paradox is so crazy because.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's okay.
No, that's good. Yeah, no, I know it's the global situation's been crazy, but hopefully you guys still have some ability to get outdoors and enjoy all the nature out there. I know
Yeah,
that's
it's
pretty
not
cool.
always the case.
Yeah,
It's
yeah,
not
exactly.
always the case, but for now, I'm knocking on wood.
Yeah, right.
We still have the right to go outside, so it's cool.
That's awesome, man. Well, cool. Well, yeah, so we wanted to kind of have a conversation around a little bit around photography, but also around sustainability and conservation, kind of having a career with purpose, kind of all the things that we think you're doing out there, which is super cool. So kind of before we started, I just wanted to kind of talk a little bit about how, kind of your background and how you got into photography, because I think I saw that you came into it pretty recently, and your kind of your career in photography kind of took off rather quickly, or you invested in it pretty quickly. So tell us a little more about that.
Yeah, thank you. So ever since I was like a very like little kid, I remember like playing with the camera like of my grandparents or my parents.
Yeah.
So I think that's where it like really started, but it was never something I really enjoyed doing or not enjoyed, but I was like planning on doing for a career or whatever. And it just like, as I was growing up, I was watching sometimes like the first like snowboard videos or like BMX videos of Red Bull, and I was like, wow, okay, that's crazy. Like the power of like storytelling through visual arts. And same thing, I was like, wow, that's crazy. And I wanted to do the same like videos, but my mind was on like a whole different dream and goal. And so I was studying. So I grew up on like an island, but after I had to go to mainland, like to France to study for high school. And my dream was to be like a fighter pilot. So that was like my whole like career, like the plan, like that was the goal. And yeah, so while I was studying, like to get closer to the planes, because sometimes I would feel like unmotivated because I was like so far, it was like so far away. I was never like being in contact with my dream. And so to get closer to the planes, I started like to get interested into photography and like get a camera so I could get closer to them and just like take photos of airplanes and go to air shows and like just like be more into that space where I was like getting closer to my dream. So I was like the last year of high school, I was just watching every single like YouTube tutorial on photography. How does the camera works? All the settings, how the lenses, how do they work, and then how to use them. The review on all the different lenses, all the different camera.
You get lost in those videos for sure.
Yeah. And after it's like the rabbit hole of like video editing but it was super cool. That's how I learned everything was on YouTube. Like it was purely not in the beginning, it was not like my studies, or I never went like to film school or photography school, which I think is a great idea to go there. It's not how do you say, it's not mandatory,
right?
By no means. However, the community and the people you find there, I think that's the power of like film school and stuff. You can learn everything on YouTube on your own, but then you're kind of like alone, and networking and community in this field is like one of the most important aspects. So
yeah, absolutely.
So that's why I would recommend film school if you feel like if you're like doubting on going or not. But just know
Mhm.
that everything you will learn there, you can find it on YouTube.
Yeah, that's awesome. It's cool, it's like one of those stories where you look back and you can connect the dots, how,
Oh, yeah,
you
where
know,
everything
you
is
know,
crazy.
pilot, yeah, you want to be a pilot, got into photography. It's really cool. How did that kind of shift towards ocean photography? And maybe that was when you kind of made the jump to coral gardeners, but was it before that, or when did that come into play?
So it's such a long story, but I'll try to make
Yeah.
it clear and short. But
Right.
so yeah, I finished my high school, and so I was like getting closer and closer to my dream, but like a lot of different reasons made that I had like to give up on that dream, and it was super hard because it was like overnight, and at the same time we had like one of the biggest hurricane that was hitting like my home island, like where I grew up.
Mhm.
And so I was like, in overnight, I was like, I had no more like dream, no more, like my whole life was traced. I had like the path in my mind, and then
Wow.
boom, nothing more.
Wow.
And then the hurricane was like destroying everything. It was like Hurricane Irma. I don't know if you heard about it, but it was like
Mhm.
one of the biggest hurricane in Atlantic Ocean.
Yep.
Um, and so the goal was just to go back there as soon as possible, because it was like tricky. I rather like be there with my family rather than being outside of it and then watching the
Right.
damn news. Where
Exactly.
they always do like the, oh my god, and there's so many deaths and it's always destroyed, like the drama.
Right.
And
Absolutely.
so yeah, go back there as soon as possible, and starting to like rebuild and take care of like the island.
Mhm.
And so that's what I did. But at some point, I was like, okay, but now I don't want to go back to school.
Right.
It's not for me. Like
Yeah.
I always hated school. It was never like something I enjoyed, but I was forcing myself and I was always like a good student, not like straight A's, but trying to do my best at least.
Mhm.
But I was never enjoying school. It's like not, and now like really like I feel bad, like it's so old, like but that's the whole like other topic. And how do we prepare and what do we put inside the head of our young generation? It's
Yeah.
just so outdated, and it's not preparing them in no way for like the actual world that we live in right now. And
Yeah.
but that's another topic. And
Exactly. Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. But especially as a creator, because
yeah,
it's obviously it's hard to learn your own sense of creativity and art, really, as it is in photography.
for sure. And sometimes school is like, it's a side effect. It's not like their intention, but it's uh numbing like the sensitivity, and like we get all these things that we don't show emotion, we just work hard, like we just do the thing. And I mean, no, working hard and doing all of those things is cool, but we have to accept that, like, how do we treat other people, how do we treat ourselves and our body, and it's like the foundation of all the different things. So
Yeah.
but yeah. And so I had to start working.
Mhm.
uh, so I just like I got my driver license, and I got the first job I could. So I was like driving trash trucks, picking up the trash on the side of the road in the morning.
Sure.
After, we would go to the harbor and like unload the big containers, um, or just go to on construction sites and
Mhm.
manage the, how do you say, the waste, no, the garbage of the
Yeah.
construction site.
Okay.
So I would be spend all of my time like driving the truck, or be at the junkyard, like in all that environment, which was super cool because it taught me so much. Like it it taught me like about working for what you want, like the work ethic. and
Mhm.
um and suddenly like being thrown into the adult world like was pretty interesting too. Like you realize that there's, at least that's what I realized and how I felt, that there were like no difference between like the school and the way people act at school and like the the adult world,
Right.
you know.
Yep. Yeah.
So that was another like crazy thing. And so I was working that job, and it was all right, but it was not very fulfilling, and it was to just make money. And I was like, okay, you can do that forever, like, because you're making your own money, even though you're like super young, you can just keep doing this like forever.
Right.
And some people do, and that's fine, and there's no shame, and like no job is like crappy, and it's all like different.
Yeah.
And
Absolutely.
but I was like, no, I'm sure there's more to see, like there's more to do in the world, and I've always been super passionate about like that, aviation, like aeronautic, adventure, nature, wildlife, all that stuff.
Hmm.
And so I wanted to do something that brings me closer to that universe. And so I was like, yeah, why don't you try like to give a shot at photography? Because I was practicing it on the side like as a hobby, and people were like, oh, your photos are nice, or like they were telling me nice stuff. So I was like, why not try this? And so I was like, okay, but if you try this, like go all in, like don't half-ass it, like just you got to get out of this, because I didn't want to spend my whole life like in that job.
Right.
So I saved, like it was a lot of sacrifice. Like I was, all the money I was earning was like directly, I was lucky enough to live at my parents' house. I was 18 at that time. And all the money was going straight into like the best camera gear I could find.
Right.
And all my free time was like learning, and then try to practice. And so yeah, I bought like the best gear I could find, and around like in a time of like 1 year, I
Hmm.
was starting to shoot on the side of my work. And after I got my drone license, like to fly the drone commercially,
Yeah.
open like my freelance, uh, like a little company, I don't know, just to be like
Yeah.
a
Right.
freelance.
Hmm. On the side.
And that's how it kind of like started. But then, even though like my dream to become like photographer was like real, like starting to be real, I was like, I've never felt like so bad my entire life, and it was like very shitty like period.
Hmm.
And because like all the stuff I was asked to do were like meaningless to me, like shooting like hotels or like big houses, like villas, and it's fun one or
Right.
two times, but there's no like purpose, there's no meaning in it, at least for me. Some people can find it there, that's fine.
Right. Right.
But so yeah, I was missing that stuff. And then I was watching, I was on Instagram, and I was looking at core gardeners. It was like the beginning. It's so funny, like we started like almost at the same time, but two different parts of the world.
Yeah.
And so
Right.
when in 2017, when I started like my journey like to become this, and like give up on my dream, then core gardeners started, and they were like one guy like Titwan, the founder,
Right.
and
Right.
in his bedroom doing his stuff. And then we just kind of like grew on each part of the world, and then we kind of met. And so I was watching them, and I was like, wow, that's like the lifestyle I wish. Even though I lived on an island, they were like living the lifestyle that had disappeared on my island, because my island was like lost its tradition, lost all the community, lost all everything that makes an island an island.
Right.
And so that's what like bothered me. And so
Hmm.
these guys were like living like the dream, like surfing, fishing, and
The true Islander
just having
lifestyle.
like the community of the island, and the tradition. So I
Hmm.
was like, that's crazy. And they're like, first it looks cool, and then they're doing something good for the planet, good for the ocean.
Hmm.
And it's like just crazy. And so I was like, wouldn't be so cool like to shoot for them. And I was just like having this idea in my mind like over and over, because I was very like depressed at that time. And so that was like my only like thought.
Hmm.
And at some point I just like show an Instagram story who said like, hey, Corgan Nurse is looking for a photographer, videographer. And I was
Right.
like, wow, that's crazy. So I just like, I was about like to reply, and then I didn't.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
I that's the thing I regret the most, I think. Not that I regret nothing now, but man, I wish I just like had replied from the first time. It
Oh,
would have saved me so much suffering, because I was like, I listened to the little voice in my head who said like, no, you're not good enough. Like, who do you think you are, like, to go and
right.
like take this, you know?
Yeah,
So
yeah.
I listened to that little voice, and I didn't reply to the thing, and I was like so depressed, so sad after. I was angry at myself, and but I don't know how, like, I said to myself, if it's really what's gonna happen, then no, don't worry. It's not your job to worry about how it's gonna happen. You just have to keep faith and keep hope.
Hmm.
And so it's gonna happen. If it's really what needs to happen, it's gonna happen. And so I keep working my thing. I keep doing, and like 3 4 months after, I was having lunch like in my truck, or I was on Instagram, and then I saw the same exact story. And I was like, this time,
Yeah, right.
this time it's like
First
for me. I
comment,
just like
yeah.
jump on it. I reply, and we start like chatting back and forth a little bit, and I managed to get on the call with Titouan,
Hmm.
and it was super fun because it was like really the beginning. Like it was just a like a summer camp for teenagers, you know.
Yeah,
But they were trying to do something, and but it's so cool. But it was like very just the very beginning,
of course.
and so we chatted a little bit, and it was like fun. Like it was as if we knew each other for like 10 years. It was pretty cool. And at the end of the call, like we just knew each other for like 5 minutes, and at the end he's like, okay bro, there's a bed for you in Montreal, just to come whenever you can.
Yeah.
I was like, all
Just
right,
fly across the world. We're
yeah.
good.
and so yeah, the next day I just quit my job. I quit everything. I buy a ticket, and yeah, in 2 weeks I was in Montreal. So I landed there in June 2019,
Wow. Okay.
and that's where like ocean conservation and all that stuff like really started, and where I opened my mind to like sustainability and taking care of the ocean and the planet in general. And I started
Yeah.
volunteering for a while. But yeah,
Absolutely. That's awesome. That's such a cool story. And it makes me think of how, people give advice of like, do what you're passionate about, which absolutely you should, but you work your way into growing a passion for something over time. And
yeah,
like
for
through
sure.
your story, that passion grows into new elements. So, first photography, then it's sustainability or ocean. Maybe now it's really around even conservation,
For
and
sure.
rebuilding a coral reef. So just makes me think of how we're always refining our passion, but when that hits you about this is something I want to do, to definitely do it, and that's
Sure. And it's very tricky because sometimes you can spend a lot of time, because before like you get the spark and you actually enjoy the thing, it can be painful in the beginning, and you're not always in love at first
right,
sight, you know.
right,
It can be tricky because no one is telling you about that stuff, and so you're like questioning yourself, and you can feel super depressed even though you're like achieving your dreams. And I wish like someone like I wish there were like more um, knowledge about this, you know,
yeah,
because it's tricky.
exactly, exactly. Think about, if you're unhappy, thinking about the type of changes you could make that would make a change that wouldn't impact the way you're feeling, for sure. I think
Exactly.
it's yeah, we don't think about that so often. I know it's kind of an element of mindfulness, which I think is
Yeah,
something that I think you practice. I think I've seen some of your Instagram stories about being very intentional about your day,
everything. Yeah, it's
mindset.
and you find so much joy, and yeah, so much joy in just the little thing, and that's all that matters, you know. In At the end of the day, it's just like being here and now, which is easy to say. It's very hard to do,
Yeah,
but just the process of trying to do that, and you can find like a lot of joy in just like sitting here and watching everything that's happening to you. And at the end of that, that's the only thing you need, you know. You really need like, and it's crazy.
right. Your own happiness. Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's so true. Okay, so tell us. So now you're over there in Moray. if I'm saying it correctly, in French Polynesia, and you're arriving at Coral Gardeners. And so you dove before. Have you done underwater photography and stuff like that before, or you're just getting into that world?
No, I got I ordered my housing right before I knew that I was going to Coral Gardeners, so it was
Yeah.
like another like funny stuff. And so I received like my housing 4 days before I take off. And yeah, I mean, I grew up in the ocean, so I know how to swim, but I'm not that good I'm not very good at free diving or but yeah, free diving mainly because that's like the main thing we do.
Right.
And I've never used like my camera in a housing, so I just learned everything with T1 and like Coral Governors like in Moria, which was super cool. It was like intense course.
Yeah, right.
It's super cool.
That's every time I see those photos of you guys free diving, I'm like, wow, I need to know how long they can hold their breath, because you go down and, you know, obviously like adjusting the corals or observing the corals, and it's like that requires some time down there, and to be constantly doing that is pretty incredible.
Everything we shoot is like on breath hold.
Yeah.
And is yeah, but it comes pretty fast with time. But what's tricky is that maybe the guy who's like the model is just or like the guy, they're just having to care about their stuff or just like looking around. But when we dive, we have to push like the housing, which is like super buoyant. We have to have like a big weight belt with like how many pounds? 8 pounds of weight.
Yep.
And then you have to be not in your own element, like you're in the ocean, but then you have to keep looking for like what's coming, like just the wildlife, and also the settings, framing the shot while like you're like I don't know, sometimes you can be deep like 33 feet, even more sometimes, which is like not super deep for like people who free dive a lot, but like for example for my housing it's like the max depth. And usually for all the photos without any strobe light, it's where like most of the interesting stuff happens. So you never go like below 15 meters, which is like 45 foot, I think. So.
Yes, that's super cool. And it's like everything is so, you know, in the moment, because of course you can't go down there and prep the shot and everything like that. which makes it so cool.
What's tricky too is that you can, I mean, okay, with maybe like someone you can like make them redo the stuff, but if you're like shooting like a shark or a whale or like whatever, you have one shot.
Yeah,
so if you miss like they're never gonna do the same thing twice. So that's what's beautiful, but that's what's challenging too, because you gotta be very like agile and in tune and fast.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so one last question there for the photographers that'll be watching this. Do you spend a lot of time then prepping like the shots you want because there's such a tight time window to get them, or is it more of like, I'm there, whatever comes my way, I'm gonna do my best to capture it and work with it?
In the ocean is really the second option, because you can have like the only shot I think I had in my mind before like actually taking it is the shot where you have like the tiger shark from above.
Yeah.
And that was a shot but I didn't invent anything. Like that's a shot you see a lot. It's a composition like a lot of photographers have done before me. It's just that I've never seen this one with like a shark above, but of a tiger shark.
Right.
And I was like, okay, I want my version of it. And I'm so glad it's like it's like my favorite animal ever on it. And it came out like I love that picture, and it's one of my favorites for sure. And so no, we never really plan anything. You're just in the moment, and that's what's so beautiful. Either you're shooting surf or like wildlife or like in the ocean in general, even above the water, it's the same thing, but it's trickier. The ocean is so immersive, like you gotta be in the moment. There's so much, because it's hostile. It's not a mean environment. It's not like full of hate, or it's full of love and all that stuff. However, it's merciless. It's hostile. Like nature is beautiful and giving and abundant and loving, but it's also merciless. So you're job to be aware, and like, so you got to be in the moment, and
Right.
I don't know, just watch what's happening in front of you and try to capture this.
Yeah, exactly. It's coexistence, but you got to look out for yourself, you know?
Yeah, exactly. For sure.
That's cool. I remember seeing those tiger shark photos, by the way, and you know, it's like, you know, I've never personally gotten close enough to even see like the tiger shark like striping and like the print, you know, and so seeing that in your photos was super cool. I was just like blew my mind. And so being you know, close to sharks and everything now, of course, you know, you have some familiarity, but you know, obviously, as we know, a lot of people are scared of sharks or, you know, have a bit of a fear when it comes to the ocean and, you know, swimming in the deep and stuff like that. So tell us a little bit more about kind of that mindset specifically with sharks when you're diving with them, and kind of how, what you do to coexist with them.
Okay, so that's a good question. I mean, sharks are my favorite animal, and it's so crazy, like the harm we do to them
Yeah.
for like no reason. And so the problem is that, first of all, like we kill them so much. Like we kill like more than or close to 100 million of sharks per year. So that's like 200 a minute. And on the other hand, like people dying from shark not attacks, not shark like accidents, because shark don't attack us. If shark would attack us, really, if we were on their menu,
Right.
nobody would go in the ocean.
Yeah, exactly.
Nobody would go in the ocean.
Trouble.
That's as simple as that.
Yeah.
And so yeah, and maybe like 1 or 3 people could die from like a shark incident. And so that's crazy. And people, they're so scared about shark because like we have like this distorted perception of them because of like movies such as Jaws and stuff like this. But
of course,
but it is what blows my mind is that people are, when you talk about the ocean, they're like, oh, I'm so scared of sharks. They've never seen one their entire life, and they think it's like that man-eater, and it's not their fault, you know, but it's also the responsibility of the people who put out like movies such as Jaws and who keep feeding that vision that we have about them, which is like very harmful because of that, in the head of people, it's okay to kill sharks. So very few people are taking action and raising awareness on the problem of killing 100 million sharks per year.
Yes.
However, sharks are like the key component of the ocean. Like many species are like that, but when you have like the food chain, you have the corals at the base,
of course, right,
and the sharks at the top. And these are like the 2 extremes, and these are like maybe the most important, which is crazy. Like sharks like reduce the fish population and clean the ocean of like the fish with like disease, and so it's natural selection. And so less fish population means less, the corals get eaten less. And on the other side, like corals are the home for like the little fish, and then the bit bigger fish comes in, and then up to like the tuna and what sharks eat, you know, and everything is like interconnected. And if you lose completely one of the balance, like you get like a overpopulation of fish, and then maybe the corals will get eaten more. You know, I'm not scientist, but I know like a little, like the little facts that so I don't know the how everything works, but it's very important.
Absolutely.
And, yeah.
No, yeah, it's just hard. It's hard to really grasp that number of, you know, millions of sharks, and like, you know, it's
crazy.
I think that's something we don't see it, so you know, it's hard to grasp. And I think one of the amazing things about you know, conservation photography and you know, just photography in general is, and through Instagram, you know, we have the ability to see and tap into some of that stuff. And you know, I know for us, like I'm wearing a shark print shirt, and it's really because, you know, we need to raise awareness of how amazing they are, and the fight to conserve, you know, shark populations. And specifically, one of the things that fired me up about it was I was lucky enough to be in the Galapagos and see, you know, see firsthand, and also learn about the stories of like extreme commercial fishing around the Galapagos and
Yeah.
shark finning and just the gore that happens on those ships. And it obviously broke my heart. So, you know, it's amazing. I think, you know, that photography and videography and storytelling around these amazing animals is hopefully what's going to help change mindsets. And then as well, when we see you swimming effortlessly with them as well, that's a little bit encouraging about taking a dive in the water and giving it a try yourself as well.
Yeah, thank you. No, I wish everyone could experience this, because then you would see that it's fine. Like, I'm not saying by any means that these are like they're teddy bears, you know. It's like going with lions. Like, these are like apex predator. They're the king of the ocean. They're the king of their territory. They can end your life like this. But they don't do it because it's fine. They don't
It's not their prerogative.
them about us, you know.
Yeah. Exactly.
But if you don't respect them, then you can initiate. They're very curious, especially like tiger sharks. They're very curious beings, and so depending on how do you present yourself and your body language, and if they come to you and you start to swim away,
right,
and you splash the water, you can just like tickle their curiosity, you know. And so they have no hands, so the only thing they can do is like take a bite. And unfortunately, that's what a shark attack is. Like, attack, it's an incident, you know.
Boring, right? Yeah.
Because but the problem is you can die from the wounds of like a shark just tasting, you know. And if they were liking our taste, we would never find, nobody would survive a shark attack.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And it's just like incident because of the body language and the way you were in the ocean, the fear, or like you can, like, if you start moving fast and just tickle, it's like a dog. It's like really like a big dog.
Right.
Same behavior. And
it's so true. And so when you, or as I guess you have been diving with them, I know you spoke about some of the like the body language, obviously, that you need to use. Where did you kind of pick that stuff up? And like, I know, like, for myself, I've started to explore a little bit with, like, I think Juan Sharks does a good job. Yep. And the deterring kind of mechanism, and like you said, not splashing, but holding your posture, are really interesting. Where did you kind of pick it up from or learn about some of those tactics?
So I didn't dive a lot with tiger. I only have 2 dives, which, and the second one was like very recently. It was just amazing. It was like, I didn't know why I waited so long, and I wish I will never wait that long before doing it again.
Yeah.
But it's like with my buddy Denis. He's like a free diver, but he's like diving with the sharks since like a lot of many years. And he introduced me in it, and he just like tried to explain me the things. But I think it's pretty straightforward. Like, never it's like a big dog. You never run away from it, or you just stay calm. You're there, and if it comes to you, most of the time it will just like break away like 1 meter away from you, but you just stay there. And if it comes to you to contact, you just gently put your hand on his nose or on the side of his head, and you don't even have to push him. You just, when you put your hand, you just like, you know. And if it's very, very curious, like, you can just redirect him like gently, and it's totally fine. But what you want to pay attention, sometimes they have, every shark have like their mood and personalities, and some of them are very curious. They keep coming back to contact, or some of them, they just stay away, and sometimes they come. But sorry, I lost it a little bit.
No, that's all right. So you're talking about just kind of their movements, and I think, like, part of it is, like, you have to expect that they're going to come close to you, and like having that mindset will really help, so you don't freak out when that moment comes.
And if they don't want you in the water, they will let you know for sure. So watch out for like the jaw movement when they go like this.
Right.
This is like not a good sign. It's like, hey bro, you might like want to go back on your boat, because right now I'm not feeling like like diving with you, or like I don't want you in like my territory.
Right. Oh, that's
Same thing with like their fins. If they have like their fins downward instead of
Mhm.
like on the side they're just like chilling. If they have their fin like downward, it's more like a predator mode.
Yeah. Yep.
So two things like to take into
That's great.
consideration.
That's awesome.
If
That's
they're
something.
very like nervous, also they can swim fast and just come close and like turn at the last moment. But if they do it like very fast, it's
Like
also like
aggression.
a
Yeah,
not
exactly.
very good sign. But when it's going well, it's just like crazy. You can forget sometimes that they're like wild animals and they just look
Yeah.
like big teddy bear, you know, and they're just like chilling, and you can like you never like grab them or grab the fins or whatever, because
Right.
that's not respectful. But you can just like if you put your hand on his belly like this, and it's just like amazing. It's crazy.
Yeah, that is an amazing moment. That's so cool. Great. Those are great tips. So I just wanted to ask as well about coral reefs in general, since you've also spent a lot of time around those. Kind of, what's one of the biggest things you learned about coral reefs or picked up from your time in diving around them?
So I think there's a couple like very important points about them, which is the first one. I think from wherever you are in the world, um, just know that more than 50% of the oxygen you breathe, wherever you are, even in Texas or like in Alaska or whatever, I don't care.
Right.
More than 2/3 of the oxygen, or 2/3 of the oxygen we breathe comes from the ocean with like phytoplankton and all that stuff. But
Yep.
it comes from oceans with healthy coral reef, because that's the base of the ocean. What's crazy also is that more than 1/4 of all marine life on the all the ocean lives
Mhm.
lives close to coral reef ecosystem. However, coral reef ecosystem represent only 1% of the surface area of the ocean. So
Yep.
you see how crazy it is. Like in only 1% of the
Right.
ocean, you have 1/4 of all marine life that ever exists, like the everything.
Yeah. It's like
And
a New
that's why
York
it is
City
like,
kind of thing. Yeah.
yeah,
So high
and
density. Yeah.
that's why it's so important. And if you lose that balance, we already lost almost half of the coral reef worldwide.
Mhm.
And uh, scientists estimate that by horizon 2050, we might lose the rest, like everything.
Yeah.
So we have to be careful. And it's also more than, I think it's 500, at least 500 million people worldwide rely on reef ecosystem to
Of
get
course.
their main source of protein,
Yeah.
and also their main source of food. If you go to the atolls, so I was in the atolls like last week or 2 weeks ago,
Mhm.
and these people, they eat fish for breakfast, dinner, and lunch. Like it's all the time. That's the only
Right.
thing they have. All the
Yeah.
other stuff are imported and very expensive. And so a lot of communities, they only rely on like the reef.
Mhm.
And if they start declining, it's crazy. Like the
Yeah.
consequences are like awful for them.
Exactly. No, it's nuts. And I know, it's largely because of rising in ocean temperatures. And I know,
Exactly.
that seems like a problem that's, something you can't solve. But I correct me if I'm wrong, but I think, what you guys are doing is you've realized that some corals are more resistant to that increase in temperature. And so by
Yeah.
populating those specific corals that are more resistant, you can because they will survive even if temperatures rise. Is that correct?
So this is a part of the
Okay.
answer.
Yeah.
Reef restoration. So we have three main missions at Coral Gunners. The first one is reef restoration.
Hmm.
The second one, which is like maybe most important, is raising awareness worldwide and on local communities.
Right.
And the third one is like innovation, like developing, working with engineers and trying to find new tech to help ocean conservation.
Hmm.
And so reef restoration is very interesting, but it's just like this, it's surviving at this point.
Yeah.
It's not the answer. It's not what will save coral reef. It's
Hmm.
what's gonna buy us time But even if we like plant the corals, which are more resilient, we're gonna lose a lot of diversity, and it's not good. It's like
Right. No,
it's the
perfect.
less worst thing to do,
Right.
but
Yeah.
it's very important. So we focus a lot on reef restoration, and we really do our best to get the method correct, and work with like some of the pioneer of reef restoration, um, to get their knowledge and try to continue what they're doing.
Mm-hmm.
But the main mission of organizers, and I really do believe that it's true, is like raising awareness worldwide, and also to local communities, because what's affecting coral reef, the main cause is global warming. So
Mm-hmm.
too much carbon, like the carbon footprint is just too high. And raising awareness, because everyone on the planet has like a carbon footprint, and the goal is not to be perfect, because sometimes it's like, if you don't give them like the perfect solution, they're like, oh, I rather like don't do anything rather than do something
Right.
that will be a little bit better, because
Yeah.
it's not perfect in their mind, which is like crazy, because the goal has never been like to be perfect, and I'm not perfect, like you're not perfect, nobody's like
Not
perfect.
perfect as a brand either. Yep.
Yeah, the goal is not to be perfect, the goal is just to try to become a little bit better each day, and a lot better, like as fast as possible, but the perfection doesn't exist. And so the main thing like people can do is just, for now, is just reducing their carbon footprint. And if I have to give only one thing how they can do that,
Yeah.
the
Please.
easiest thing is stop red meat.
Mm. Mm-hmm. Methane.
Or not stop, because I don't stop either, but
Yeah.
maybe eat red meat only once a year,
Yeah.
twice
Yep.
a year, which is more than enough, because
Exactly.
it's not the best thing for your health. And okay, it tastes good, I love it too, huh?
Yeah.
But it's just like, it's so wrong, like it's unbalanced.
Right.
We should not be like, it's red meat and like beef, like especially like beef, but it's like the number one contributor, like the whole industry is the number one contributor to carbon footprint, and it's just insane. And if it could be the first step could be just to reduce this. I'm not saying stopping it,
Right.
but instead of eating like a couple times a week, you just eat it like maybe one time every 3 months or whatever, because it's, yeah.
Exactly. No, that's great. That's exactly the way we think about sustainability as well. Is it's like, it's almost like it's a spectrum, and
Yeah,
like wherever you are, if you're like using a ton of resources and not being very mindful of that, or if you're very mindful and using as little as possible, living off the grid, wherever you are on that spectrum, try to take it one more notch towards being, more sustainable, or that is using less resources, having a lower carbon footprint
exactly.
in general. So I think that's brilliant advice. And yeah, like you said, and like we said, like mantra isn't perfect. We knew we wanted to come in and be a sustainable brand, but we were even hesitant to use that word because we know, there is no pure sustainable brand, and it's more
For
about
sure.
having less impact through our materials, through our process, and doing everything we can. One of those things being carbon neutral, and then again donating to conservation partners that are doing work to protect nature. That's how we see that, our impact could be, greater than the next clothing brand, so to speak. And we're going to
For
always try
sure.
to work towards being more sustainable by using less resources and, being responsible for a lower carbon impact.
For
So I
sure.
think that's a great way of framing the conversation, because, people can take it as, well, I have to stop everything I'm doing, and nothing I'm doing is sustainable. But no, just take it in sequence and make progress towards, using less. And like you said, diet is a huge part. And
Yeah.
of course, plastic
Yeah.
consumption is a huge part. It's something we've just become used to. And so, something like, instead of drinking a plastic water bottle and instead having a thermos, very easy
Yeah.
switch you can make.
It's just lack of education sometimes.
Exactly. And so,
Most of the time.
right, of course. And so, just by applying yourself and thinking about the problem, there are some easy things we can all do for sure. So that's awesome. That's great. I was going to ask you for your number one tip, so you beat me to that.
Exactly.
um, Well, cool, man. That's a pretty good spot to wrap. I think there's a couple of questions we got. One from our Instagram family, which is on the best dive you've ever been on, because I'm sure you've been on a few. I know you're talking about that tiger shark one. Is that the one?
Yeah. For sure. The first one was crazy. It was like mind blowing because it was like the first time. But then I went on like another one like recently, and we were with three tiger sharks at the same time for 3 hours.
Wow.
It was just like crazy.
That's insane.
So that's my favorite one for sure.
That's awesome. I'm definitely leaving inspired to jump in and do a shark dive myself. Something I've never done, like actually being, visibly in the presence of a shark. So it's something I want to do pretty soon for sure. Yeah, so one last thing for you then. So, our brand is called Mantra, and we try to live around our mantra. We kind of think about values. Mantra are the things you're seeking to become and the values that you're holding close to you. So for us, that's to stand for something in our sustainability efforts, to live with flair, and to get out there. So those are kind of our core mantra. I'm curious if you have any mantra that you live by, or if there's one that kind of maybe captures how you're trying to live your life.
I think I have like way more than
right.
one. I have a lot of them. If you see like my bedroom, I have like little writings on the walls.
Yeah.
Everywhere.
Wow, that's amazing. Yeah.
So even like on the roof, and it's funny. So yeah, but there's not enough time to speak about all of them. But if like maybe the most important one is the one I have on my body. So I have like this little tattoo. I don't know can you see
Very cool.
it?
Yeah. What does it say?
It says "These too shall pass." So it means like whatever, and I put it here. So every time I grab something or I do something, I have like this little like writing that reminds me like, oh, like these too shall pass. So whatever it is,
right?
It's the rule of impermanence, and so the only thing that is constant in life is change, and so you better like enjoy what's right here right now in front of you, because these too shall pass. Like if it's like something bad, it's okay,
right?
Because like these too shall pass. Things will get better, just like keep going. It's all right. Like it's the rule of impermanence. Like it can never stay like this forever, no matter what you're doing. And on the other hand, if something is good, but bro, you better like enjoy it and be present, because these too shall pass.
That's awesome. So I love that.
Yeah, that's like one of my favorite ones, but I can talk about it forever. Like I have a lot of them.
That's a great one. And it's a great point that there's, it's not that you have to have one mantra that define you, but they come to you, or you hold certain ones closer to you at certain times. And, they should be changing as like what you're seeking and your purpose is changing through life as well.
For sure.
Yeah, that's super cool. Well, awesome, man. Well, thanks so much for all the time. This is going to be, an awesome thing for people to watch and get fired up about jumping in the ocean and thinking a little bit more about our lifestyle and sustainability and how we can all be a part of reducing our climate impact.
For sure. So, thanks for having me.
Yeah, thanks so much for the time, man. We'll continue to be watching on Instagram, be inspired by the work. And for anyone watching, your Instagram, it's just Ryan Borne, right? At Ryan Borne?
Yeah.
Awesome. So
I try to post sometimes. I struggle with it, but I want to keep, because I put so much pressure on myself. It always has to be like the right photo, but then the right caption and all that. But I really want to put more out there but also keep the quality very high. Just keep the standard very high, at least. Absolutely. For myself, and people can judge if they like it or not, but at least I want to like it.
It's very cool, and you're very intentional and thoughtful about it, so that's awesome. It's always worth the view, that's for sure.
Thank you very much.
For sure, we'll continue following you, as well as your work on the Coral Gardeners. I know a lot of your photography is shared on that page as well. So yeah, again, man, super awesome to collab with you this summer. We're looking forward to staying in touch, and Thanks so much for all the time and knowledge.